One of my best friends, Brad Weimert, is, as he likes to call it, baby rich. What do he and an investor who's been trolling me for the last 10 years of my life have in common? I'm going to talk about it today. So, what do you, me, and every single person on this planet who's still above ground have in common? We get the same 24 hours every single day that gets reset in our vault, and we get to choose how we use that time. Some of us are out in the world trying to create businesses. Some people are out in the world creating money and they make millions of dollars every single day. Some people sit at home and relax on the couch. Some people train rigorously to participate in ultra marathons. What we choose to do with our time is our choice. There's not a right or wrong to it. But when you look at two people in the same pursuit, what separates one person who goes much farther, much faster from another who is slow or making no progress at all? I believe that it's what we choose to spend our time focused on and who we choose to spend our time focused with. And I'm going to talk about two people today that are and have been a part of my life in different ways, very, very different ways, one of which I choose to give my time to and who chooses to give their time to me, and another one who chooses to give their time to me and I give none of my time to. And we'll talk about both. So it's 2012, and I am trying to get my software company built. The name of my company was Candid. It's a microfeedback platform that I envisioned to use one question surveys to crowdsource feedback in really dynamic environments for enterprise companies, for trade shows, for communities. I had a huge vision for this company. And long story short, I ended up over time getting this software patented. I was able to get somewhere near 10 trademarks awarded for this software, worked with companies like Diageo and Ford, industry leaders around the world. And we got some great case studies. The city of Detroit did some tests with my software in some of their communities. We did some really cool stuff. But the reality is that that company, I bootstrapped it. It was underfunded, never had enough money to really make that thing go. And what I learned about software is I thought that that was going to be a way for me, unlike real estate, to build something one time that I could then go out and sell and make large amounts of money without necessarily having the overhead that it took with real estate. And naively, what I found out is building an enterprise software company is incredibly expensive. You know, it's unforgiving. You can't have the thing not work, period, which means that you need to hire folks who are going to get the job done. It means that every time there's a new release, a new version that comes out with the latest phone updates and things like that, you got to constantly have people who are deploying updates to your software, bug fixes. It's a relentless, never-ending pursuit of making that thing work properly and then optimizing that thing if people aren't using it the way that you intended or getting value out of it that would have them pay for it. So I won't get into all the details of that, but you know, this is the story of the startup that was struggling. It didn't quite make it. And to get that company started, I went to my personal network and I actually raised just over 100 grand. That was enough runway for me to give this thing a shot. And to get the software built, I partnered with a guy named Laren Walker, one of the most brilliant entrepreneurs I've ever met. I actually went to Tennessee State with him. We came out of the same engineering program. Laren was a little bit ahead of me. And his company had done very well. We both started our first companies in college and continued them through our young adult years. And Laren had built a global company doing lots of work for big companies like Apple and Microsoft and other enterprises. And, you know, he built an 8-figure company, but he was looking to do something that was a little bit more entrepreneurial. So Laren had the software team. He had the team of people who could develop the software, and he wasn't hurting for cash. And so what we decided on is, I said, Laren, if your team is willing to build the software, I can go out and, I'm gonna sell it, and I'm gonna do my best to get into enterprises. And I got some early commitment letters from some people I knew on the enterprise side who were willing to pilot it. One of those being Diageo, and we ended up, doing some stuff with Diageo. But that's what we did. Leyland's company built out about $500,000 software platform that then became Candid. The first version was an iPhone app, and over time I had to transition that into a web application and things like that. But in order to make it work, what I did is I raised a little bit of capital and I paid Leyland's team some money, and he subsidized the rest of the build and took equity in the company. So I was the majority. I still am, the majority owner of the company. Leyland took some cash, some equity, built out the software, and I was off to the races. But over the next few years, as softwares do, there were lots of bugs that needed to be fixed over time. And Leyland's company helped me out with the first build, and at different times subsequent builds. But he's running the whole company, and he can't put his team out to pasture working on my little startup while I figure out how to make money. And so he helped when he could, but I had to figure this thing out. And that first round of capital that I raised, I mean, it was gone in a split second. Just paying for the first build of the software, paying for the patent application, paying for the trademark applications, paying for the branding. What I found out very quickly was, because Candid is such a different kind of application, that's one question surveys we were doing. They didn't really exist in the marketplace as we designed them. We created an entire platform designed specifically for one question surveys to embed those from a design aesthetic literally into the physical environment in restaurants, out in the world, anywhere where you could have visual space. We would literally design our micro surveys right into the physical environment, and people could scan a QR code, they could put in a URL, they could text a number, get a micro survey delivered back to their device. And when they answer the question about that particular thing, it might be about a cocktail they're drinking. It might be about the food that they're eating. It might be about a particular table in a particular restaurant. It might be about a particular server, right? We would then aggregate that feedback from all of these different micro surveys in context to tell a comprehensive picture about that particular thing, whether it's an event, whether it's a restaurant, multiple restaurants in the chain. But it was a really novel approach to feedback, and we got awarded a patent because of that. But we never had the resources, and I didn't have the relationships at the time to be able to build that into something substantial, and just couldn't get ahead, right? And that company, after 6-7 years of trying and to get the thing going, I just never got over the hump, and I had to put a pause on it. But I want to be clear, like that initial investment capital was gone within, probably the first 6 months, just doing the basics to get the design and the development of this thing built out. And for years, I literally, after I lost my real estate business, I went into the software, went into building Candid a couple years after that. But the entirety of the time where I was trying to build Candid out, I'm living at home with my mom and my dad, right? There's no extra money that's coming in for the most part. Like, I didn't go out much. There was like working, and the handful of times that I went somewhere, I generally found a way to use group economics to lower the cost on what it was going to take to be able to do those things. I lived a very efficient life. And the first person who cut me a check in that company was a guy who I'd known from a coaching program, and we got to be pretty good friends at that time. He was actually a coach of mine, and he cut the first check for Candid. It was a $50,000 check, and still grateful to this day. That was significant seed capital of the hundred or so thousand that I raised. That was significant for me because it allowed me to get the thing started. If you've known me for any period of time, you also know that whether or not I got that capital, Candid was going to start. Like, one person doesn't start or stop a show for me, but I 100% was grateful and am grateful that that person cut that check at that time. It was meaningful and still is. But what happened after that is it's a really sad story. More sad to me about that person than anything else, and how this $50,000 check that they cut has consumed so much of their life. The vitriol and the hatred that this person has put in print toward me and my family is shocking. This person is a coach of people. This person is out in the community leading people on stages. If I showed anyone the nature of the messages that this person has sent me verbally on voicemails and in print over dozens of emails over the last decade, and I've barely responded. And when I have responded, it's always been respectful and graceful. If I showed you, it would probably ruin this guy's life. His children would be so embarrassed. His wife would be so embarrassed. The things that people do in the dark that sometimes don't come to light are shocking, are shocking. But I don't spend my time focused on that guy. I long ago blocked his messages. He's not happy that the company didn't go well. And so, because he didn't get a return on that $50,000, which he invested of his own volition, he's an accredited investor. You know, there was tons of conversation, and this wasn't like something we did half baked. I hired Silicon Valley lawyers to come and do proper closes. We have documentation for everything. There were conversation after conversation, verbally and in print, about the fact that this is risky business. You invest in a startup, you never know how this thing is going to go. And be clear about this: with $100,000 and hustle and hard work, I somehow got a software patent, almost 10 trademarks, did enterprise business with a software that was struggling the entire time, always had bugs. I don't know how I stayed in that thing for 7 years, but I gave it my level best. And somehow this person believes that they were scammed. They were somehow scammed. I am baffled by the things that this person has put in print. And early on in the process, I tried to respond. I tried to respond. And I realized at some point in time that the facts of the matter were not what we were dealing with. There was just something emotional going on. And what you'll see if you look at some of my YouTube videos, you'll see this person trolling me right now. You'll see exactly who it is. I've got a lot of great karma out in the world. Success leaves clues, and when you treat people well, that leaves clues. There is one person you'll find who is trolling me all around the internet, especially on YouTube. And what I want you to do is not spend a moment. So if you're somebody who's done business with me and you've gotten a great result, there are plenty of you out there. I don't want you to do what you see sometimes and go attack that person. I don't want you to give them any of your time. Let that comment stay there. And I'm not going to hide the comments either. I'm going to let them stay right there. Because the way that I approach and the way that I've seen very successful people approach folks who wish them ill, some of the most successful people don't even acknowledge it. They spend no attention. If I watched like Jay-Z and Beyonce and how they deal with, excuse me, with trash that's coming their way, they just don't. And it's really graceful to watch. And on the other side of the coin, I think about somebody like Ja Rule. And this is one of the, one of the most visceral illustrations of this. Ja Rule was on top of the world, hit after hit after hit. Here comes this guy, 50 Cent, trolling him relentlessly. And Ja Rule decides to go down into the mud with him. And what happens? In the course of about a year, somehow 50 Cent emerges victorious, trolls Ja Rule out of a career, and Ja Rule is now, lightweight a laughing stock. Years later, if you look at that man's actual discography, Ja Rule has done some legendary things in terms of the amount of hits that he had. He defined a whole generation of music. If you really think about it, at that time for years. But we don't remember any of that. What we remember is 50 Cent came in and dethroned him and made him the deepest kind of irrelevant I have ever seen anybody become from a place of success in music. I've just never seen anything like it. And 50 Cent many times tried to do the same thing with Jay-Z. Jay-Z didn't even engage, didn't even engage. So when you think about where you spend your time and focus, even when somebody has made it their life's mission to troll you, to wish you ill, physically and verbally, I've had that person actually put in print that they'd like to see me die. How deep is somebody's emotional harm when they say something like that? I don't even read their messages. Their messages go in a special bucket in my email inbox. I keep every single one. I've kept every single voicemail. I've kept every single message, and I've got them neatly collated for if I ever need to do a restraining order, because I've checked on it. If I ever need to do a restraining order, and at some point when I have time and space, I'm going to publish all of the things this person has sent so that people understand that investor abuse is real and how to deal with it. Because I've talked to other founders and found out that this is not something that is isolated. Other people have had experiences like this, but maybe they didn't have as thick skin as I do. But it like you can have somebody's life be deeply impacted by someone who is trolling them on that level and abusing their power, their proximity to that person. So I don't spend my time at all on this person, at all. I'm taking more time right now today than I've probably taken in the last 3-4 years dealing with this, because I just want to share with you, when you have stuff like this, you get to choose. You get to choose. Do you open that email? Do you listen to that voicemail? Do you take time to respond? In this case, to an investor who feels entitled to something for some reason. In other cases, maybe the people who troll you on social media. Do you take time to respond to each one of those things? Or do you just let it be and focus on the things you need to focus on? And on the other side of the coin, my buddy Brad, um, I have done a poor job, and I realized this weekend in our conversations, I've done a poor job of giving Brad the opportunity to actually like to actually help me in business, because he's one of the few people I really look up to in a lot of ways, as a businessman, as an investor, and he's a fantastic friend. He's a deliberate person too. I've not actually taken time to share with Brad in a clear, concise way, hey man, here's what I'm working on. Can you help? Mostly because I've been nervous to do so. Brad is somebody who I have the utmost respect for. And I never want anybody who's close to me or period to feel like I'm trying to take advantage in some way, or like I'm not respecting their time because I have proximity, that I wouldn't know that they're up to things and they're busy. I don't want to ever feel like I'm taking advantage, and I don't want them to feel that way. But that's not the nature of friendship. Brad is literally one of my closest friends, and the level of success that he has, like I said, he calls himself baby rich, right? And for him in his network, and I've got proximity to some of the same people in my network, but Brad way more. Brad literally knows people and is good friends with people, and a good amount of his network is people who literally make like millions or tens of millions of dollars per year. Some of those folks make 2-3 million a month. Some of those folks, and when I say make, I mean like put away net income. And Brad calls himself baby rich. It may not be 2-3 million a month, but Brad does just fine. And in comparison to 2-3 million a month, Brad is like, well, that's something for me to shoot for. But like, when I think about where I'm at financially, it's nowhere near that. And I make significantly more than the greater majority of my peers, probably by a long shot, but I'm nowhere near what Brad makes. And we were talking about like, what has somebody, I think the way we got into the conversation is I asked him, when I look back like 5-6 years, there was a point where Brad was like, kind of low seven figures and sticking right around the same point yearly. And then there was just a moment where something shifted and the ceiling came off that thing and the growth like really exploded. And I was just asking him like, what do you think that was? Was it a mindset thing? Was it literally just consistency in the business? And over time, the business just grew. And he said, no, I really think it was focus. It was focus on the operational elements that really needed to be there. And I won't get into all the details, but he gave me some areas that were really around like focus operationally in the business and getting out of the way, not being too narrowly focused on the details that he didn't need to be managing, giving up some stuff and not needing it to be perfect. He said, and I think, Thomas, when I look at you and where you're at and where we were at, right? He said, I think that there's a level of focus that you put in different areas that like you need to be focused elsewhere, basically. Like you should be making way, way more money. And he said it respectfully, but basically he just told me clearly, you ought to be making way more money. And he put on my mind some specific reasons why I'm not, especially comparatively speaking to where we both were a decade ago. And you know, I sat with that, and I thought about the fact that I've not really leaned in and asked my friend for help. And Brad would love to help me be rich. Why didn't I ask? Why didn't I spend some of my time being focused on that? It's a conversation away at any given time. I talk about leveraging your network and leaning into the people who are leaning into you. And here's one of the closest friends I have. Why didn't I ask? Why am I 10 years in and Brad knows what I do, but he's not gotten a chance to sit down with me and really understand what I'm focused on, who I'm focused with. That single thing is representative of what I'm talking about today. How we spend our time and where we focus and who we focus with, I think is the single greatest opportunity that we have in our lives at any given moment. We have the people who we need in our life in order to get where we're going. And if we don't, we have the ability to choose consciously to go out and find them and ask for help. Pride, being afraid to be annoying, whatever it might be, whatever narratives that we have, that is what's in the way of us getting where we're going. It's not having the resources, the money, the whatever. It's not being willing to ask. It's not being willing to go out and, find the person that we need and just ask. And if they say no, find the next person. We're getting nowhere without the relationships to the people who have the knowledge, the resources, the access that we need. Those trusted relationships will accelerate anything that we're working on, but we got to be willing to ask. We got to be willing to focus. So in closing, the people who you do and don't focus on will determine the things that, that happen in your life. They'll determine how you feel, your level of happiness, your level of health, your level of wealth. The access to those people that you give into your life, that's what's going to make your needle move in whatever direction. The people who are negative influences, you get to choose. Give them your time or not. The people who troll you on the internet, you get to choose. Give them your time or not. The people who want to sow into you and help you, you get to choose. Give them your time and your energy or not. Either way, the choice is yours. Amplify Daily.